Hey guys, my name is Ankit and welcome back to Bawa channel. This is a very different video, like what I do. It's a very informative video for all you guys जिन्होंने title देख के click करा है. It is India to Canada and this is India. She is Canada. Okay, so she is Rita Puri. She was my client back in the days when I used to do freelance. So she is from Canada, living in Canada. I am shamelessly shouting out to her channel because if you are getting any help from this video, it's because of her. So you can please go and subscribe the channel that you are seeing on the screen right now, Rita's Kitchen What's Cooking. So she makes amazing cooking videos. She's like now starting out with health and nutrition videos. So please go and check her out. She is very good. Rita's Kitchen, What's Cooking. Over to you, Rita.
Hey, thank you, Ankit. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. So, my parents just flew from Bangalore to Toronto, and it has been a nightmare. They have been trying to find flights for ages, and of course, they had the airport open, then they shut it down, then they open it, then they shut it down. So, what I did was I was like, record everything, make a video. I told my mom to make some notes. I told my dad to take pictures, of course, without people like noticing and stuff. So
It's tough.
we have a lot of information that even I was kind of like, oh my god, that's what they're doing. So I'd be happy to just go over those, and then if you have any questions about what I found out, we can go through those as well.
Perfect. Sounds good to me.
I've got some extra forms and stuff that we can show that are available for people to fill in, and we'll talk about everything.
Okay, perfect. So guys, in this video, I'll be speaking very less because I do not have any information from India to Canada. She'll be speaking more. So over to you, Rita. Let's start from the top.
All right, perfect. So let's get started. So I talked to them about, just give me the basics from when they when they got to the airport and arrived to the point where they got outside of Toronto International Airport. So a couple of things, and I know Bangalore Airport is already very strict with their traveling, and they still one of the only, I've traveled a lot, and it's still one of the only airports in the world that asks you to print out an e-ticket.
Yeah, true.
Literally,
yeah,
like they will not accept anything on your phone. And this is also pre-COVID, right? So in a way, I think that's still great right now because people aren't pulling their phone out, and they're not like somebody else isn't touching it and scanning it, so less of that happening. So in a way, I think the e-tickets really work out. Of course, my parents have their baggage, they have their e-tickets. They are older, I just want to mention. So my parents are in their 70s, mid to early 70s.
Okay.
They don't look like it. They look great, but they still travel. They travel on a wheelchair. So that's one of the things that they were really having a hard time with. So let's go back to maybe the beginning when they booked their tickets. They were due to fly back to Toronto in April. So they usually leave Canada in the winter, and they're retired, so they come to Bangalore, spend the winter or get some heat, and then go back April, May. April, May. So this time, of course, thanks to COVID-19, that wasn't happening. It wasn't even an option because obviously in April everything was closed. There weren't even any flights.
Everything, right? Everything was closed. People lost their jobs.
Things are happening. Things are happening. So, they were trying, and I know some more information because we had some other family friends that were in Delhi at the time.
Okay.
And what they did is they really wanted to get back home for personal reasons. So they were trying, and on Canada's side, again, there were flights and they were allowing incoming flights, but I feel like in May they started running those emergency flights.
It was called like Vande Bharat mission.
So one of the challenges I guess they faced was, when do we book? We don't know when they're going to be open because the family friends who ended up flying in June. They initially got their new tickets for the first week of June. Now, the first week of June, flights still were not flying even from Delhi, and if there was, I think they were doing domestic flights at the time.
In June, late June, I took the domestic flight from Delhi to Bangalore. So they started the domestic flights from mid-June. But there were no international flights, only for the emergency cases of people who were struck
So what they did, the family friends, is they had to pay for the price of the ticket, which we can do some conversions, but they paid in Canadian dollars, and they paid about, I think, $1,100 for a one-way ticket.
Okay.
That's how much a return flight costs from
Yeah.
Toronto to India.
Okay.
And this is in Canadian dollars.
Yeah.
And then they had to pay another almost $2,000 per ticket
Oh no.
to get on this, emergency flight,
Whoa.
because they were still this was still there were there's more than 10,000 people on the list.
Yeah.
And this was, hey, you want to get on? We're spacing out the airlines. We have to. I think they're
social distancing and things.
Yeah, idea was, I think airlines just want to make the money off of 3 people, right?
Yeah.
Everything they've lost.
Yeah.
So they paid $3,000 Canadian per ticket.
Wow.
And then flights got canceled.
Again.
At this point, airlines had started realizing that they can put in their really fine print to say, hey, we don't know if we're going to give you your money back. So basically, you're screwed.
So basically, they generated a shell, credit shell. So whenever they want to book, they can book.
And then the other option, obviously, was buying a brand new ticket, right?
Yeah.
Which they were looking at different airlines, and they initially, because they're older, they wanted to avoid Europe.
Oh yeah.
Especially, they usually fly with British Airways, but they were really, really reluctant with, just from the news and media, that the way UK has been treating COVID.
Yeah.
So they were like, we're not going to London, we're going to try to do Air Canada. Air Canada was really expensive.
Expensive, yeah.
In Dad's words, he's like, chore. So.
Yeah, फिर से एक बारी, once more.
In Dad's words, they're like, chore sale.
Chore sale. Yeah.
But he wanted to avoid Air Canada, and luckily they got to. So they flew with Air France. They were able to change their ticket, and they didn't do this until about the end of July.
Okay.
So once, this is after the very last lockdown. I can't remember the exact dates. But,
yeah, it was 31st July.
They had the major, hey, we're doing it one more time just in case.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Right after that lockdown is when they confirmed their return flights. They were going through a travel agent in Bangalore, and she recommended that's it. We found a flight. It's a bit more expensive. Just go ahead, and they had to pay a slight difference on the flight, of course. Okay. And yeah, they were like, just.
And which flight? And which flight they have booked?
They flew with Air France.
Air France. Okay.
So that's who they had flown with initially from Toronto to Bangalore.
Bangalore, yeah.
And they decided to use their return ticket because it just worked out, I guess, for them.
Yeah.
The way they were hoping to.
Yeah.
So they got their ticket, they got the flight, everything was confirmed. And now it's the matter of, okay, my parents are in their 70s. I'm stuck in Canada. How do we make sure that they don't get COVID? We have been trying to avoid this, since
April, yeah. Yeah.
Right? So now it's like, okay, you're finally on a flight. My dad's out of his medication. He's a heart patient. He's got a whole bunch of other side problems. So in terms of the risk factor for him,
very high, yeah.
So let's just say that they traveled with almost a box of masks.
Okay.
I was like, what, in case you lost all of them?
Same I did actually. I when I was traveling from Delhi to Bangalore, I carried 20 masks. I understand.
And it makes sense, right?
Yeah, it does.
So they had a box of masks, they had a box of gloves.
Yeah.
But also because they were in a wheelchair, they were being pushed around everywhere. So they're a little lucky in the sense people were opening doors for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's get to Bangalore Airport, right? Yeah. So they live in Anical. For people who might know, that's pretty far. Being one of the first flights, that they're taking during these COVID times, they wanted to make sure that they gave themselves a lot of time, being older.
Yep.
Not knowing if there's still enough people working in the wheelchair department, which is already an issue.
Yeah.
Wheelchair in Bangalore is never an issue, but getting to France and Toronto has been an issue. So they said, let's just get there with 3 hours to spare, and worst case scenario, we'll just, खाएंगे पिएंगे बैठेंगे आराम करेंगे,
ऐश करेंगे और क्या.
Least they know, खाएंगे पिएंगे was not much of an option, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
All right. So right when you get to the airport and you arrive, you get out of your car, get your baggage. The first thing you do is you go to the first thing they did, is they went to the outdoor counters. So they had counters. They have counters outside Bangalore Airport. They're not always open, but I guess this was the protocol. You have to go and show them your paperwork and your document.
Yeah.
And so they check your passport. They check your e-ticket.
E-ticket, yeah.
Which again, one of the things that India does, right?
Yeah.
It's probably the only country that still gets you to print out an e-ticket.
Yeah, true.
Which I think is great. And during COVID, it works out because no one's touching your phone. You know, you're just like, if it was me, I would print out maybe 2 copies or 3 copies, and everybody touches it. I'm like, here, it's yours. Keep it. I have another one. I don't want it back.
Yeah.
So once they went there, that's where the counter requested their wheelchairs for them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the counter requested their wheelchairs, and they were taken in the wheelchair.
Okay.
To the front entrance of the airport. So we're not even inside the airport yet.
Okay. Okay.
Right? So front entrance of the airport. They're like, oh, good thing we got here early. You know, our flight's not till 1:30 in the morning. We're here at 9:30ish.
Okay.
And there was about 250 people standing outside in like 2 or 3 queues, according to
250 people.
Approximately. Could have been a little bit more, a little bit less.
Okay. Okay. That's a good information.
My mom said she did a little, a mini count, but she's like, definitely 200 se zyada hi. Everybody was wearing a mask, according to them. And the only thing is they weren't standing 6 feet apart. And they were like, they had some of airport security still walking around and saying, okay, keep your distance, different languages.
Yeah.
Mostly Hindi, just, piche ho, piche ho, piche ho.
No one listens. No one listens.
Important, I want to mention that people, the wheelchair helpers or the wheelchair pushers, were wearing a hazmat suit.
Whoa, okay. So like full body suit they were wearing.
Full body suit, hood, screen, mask, gloves, everything.
So basically they know most likely they are going to push elderly people and they are at most high risk. So that is why maybe they're okay. That's a nice thing. That's a nice thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
It was actually really good. I was very impressed by that.
Okay.
Because when we get to the other countries, it changes.
Oh, okay.
It was great.
Bharat. Jai Hind. Okay.
Jai Hind. No temperature was taken outside.
Okay.
Like outside. All
okay.
Right? Of course, they were in a wheelchair, so they did not have to stand and wait in the lineup. So, if there's some elderly people travel by wheelchair, it seems to be the safer option and faster.
Yeah.
So they were taken and they bypassed the line. So they got in the first door. So you're now, if you've been to Bangalore Airport, there is a little space and you're still between the doors.
Yeah.
In between those doors, they had 2 different people checking temperature.
Okay.
All right. So very first, maybe they had a smaller line in there. They said about 7 to 10 people. So they were behind a few people. They had to wait a few minutes. It didn't take very long. It went fairly quickly. And they did one of those, laser forehead temperature checks. At the counter outside, they were also given a form. So this is their first form.
Okay.
First form was a double form in the sense that it was the same information twice. You know when sometimes like the country keeps one and the person keeps one?
Yeah.
So it was something like that. So it was the same information. They asked for, name of, so each person had to fill it out. This was not per family.
Okay.
So name of the person, date of arrival in Bangalore, date of departure from Bangalore, port of arrival, port of departure, address in Bangalore, phone number in Bangalore.
Okay.
Or India, wherever you were staying, if Bangalore wasn't your main place. So it did ask in case you came from somewhere else.
Yeah.
So just those were the basic questions that were on that form. So they filled it in as they were waiting. So as soon as they got past the first temperature check. Now they are officially inside the
airport. Okay. Yeah.
They've entered the.
When they were getting the temperatures checked, so in India, there's this app which is mandatory if you are going anywhere within the city, outside the state, Arogya Setu. Did they mention anything about Arogya Setu? Anything?
No, they weren't asked.
Okay.
They weren't asked about any apps. They weren't asked anything. The only thing, they weren't even asked at this point if they had any symptoms or anything.
Okay.
It was just a quick silent, like, okay, you've been checked.
Go.
Yeah, you're good to go, right? So they just said normal, go. Now they've stepped into the airport and they're
Okay.
finally in the building, all
Okay.
right? And they've already gone through all of this.
Yeah.
And now there is a guy sitting on a table.
Okay.
That's how they describe it. A guy at a table wearing a mask.
Yeah.
And this guy was collecting the forms that
Okay.
they filled in.
Okay.
But this guy was also checking for temperatures.
Okay. So this was the second temperature check.
Within less than a 5
minutes. Okay. Okay.
Sometimes things in India are like, wow, this is great. And sometimes
Yeah.
with the form, they kept, so it was like a double form
Okay.
with the same information on both sides. So they kept one copy,
Mm-hmm.
they stamped the other one and gave it back to them because that was meant to be given to immigration.
Okay.
And from my understanding, my dad asked, what's the form for? Of course, they ask you about COVID symptoms on the form as well.
Okay.
And the form is basically to say that you went through the first, clearing process before getting to immigration to make sure that you went through the temperature check and everything else that they were going through, right? So I guess it's a way of them controlling that. It served no other purpose. I mean,
yeah, they had their basic information. Where do they live? Where they're going?
That's not important because if when you go to immigration, these forms, you don't have to wait. It's a landing card. When you come to Bangalore, you have to fill in an immigration or customs form.
Yeah.
Where are you going to be staying? When are you staying? How long are you staying?
Yeah.
Etc.
Yep. Yeah.
It's like any country.
Yep.
But this was, thanks for coming. How long were you here? And do you have COVID? Are you taking it with you? Get to the check-in counter. It wasn't very busy. So once they got into the airport, turns out these 200 people and 250, those were probably the only people traveling that night.
Oh, okay.
So the airport was empty.
Empty. Okay.
Inside. And they were just a few workers around. The counters were open, but it was empty.
Empty. Okay.
Yeah, he's
Which
like,
which is a good thing. Like if you were to count social distancing, that's a good thing. But for the economy, it's like your money is going to waste by something like that. Cool.
Well, that's why these airlines are charging like $17,000 per ticket or something ridiculous. They're not, but $3,000 per ticket is
insane. Is insane.
For
Alexa, how much is 1,500 Canadian dollars into rupees?
1,500 Canadian dollars is 84,253.
84,000. 84,000 rupees.
Let me ask my Alexa. Hey Alexa, how much is 1,500 Canadian and Indian rupees? 84,000 rupees for a one-way ticket.
One-way ticket, yeah.
This is not including people who traveled before. So they traveled on August 12th.
Yeah.
This is not including people that I know that traveled in, ended up paying the extra money and traveled in June. They paid $3,000, so double that. They're paying 170,000 rupees. So what's that, 170,000?
Yeah, 170,000, yeah.
One of the things my mom mentioned before they actually went through security is she, it had been so long already in the process. And so she wanted to use the bathroom before they went through security checks. That sometimes can take a long time.
Yeah.
So she went to use the restroom and she said that everything was touch and sensor. Everything, except for the door, right? Which I think that
they can use
the handicap button if they have it.
Okay.
Use their elbow to get in.
They don't have the handicap button. Let me tell you. Yeah. We use elbow to get in.
Yeah. 1 second. At the check-in counter, so they're at the check-in counter. They show their passport. This is where they first check my parents' OCI card. Another small random piece of information for OCI, so Overseas Citizen of India card, because my parents, of course, originally had Indian passports, moved to Canada in the 60s, got Canadian passports. Their kids were born there. But to travel to India, so we don't have to get a visa every time, my brother and I have OCI cards.
Okay.
Had OCI cards. We still physically have them, but they're worth nothing now.
Okay.
Because as of all this COVID that's happened, your great Prime Minister decided that, everyone who's had an OCI, I mean, how could we make money off this? I can't think of any other reason. Like, how do we make money off this? OCI cards are not cheap, all right? For 10 years, you get them, and they cost enough money. They cost like $500 to get made.
Okay.
and they basically said, yep, they're not valid anymore. So every person with an OCI card has to get a new OCI card made. But anyone over the age of 50 who has an OCI card that has been made, again, there is a timeline.
Okay.
But whatever that is, my parents fell into that and they were able to keep theirs, so they don't have to get theirs renewed.
Okay.
But my brother and I, our OCI cards are invalid. And, you know, if you're traveling with an OCI, I would definitely make sure you look a little bit more into it.
Okay.
If anyone's using an OCI card to travel to Canada.
Okay.
All right. So then at the counter, they checked their OCI passport, gave them their boarding passes, and gave them a form, which is called, so this was the second form that they received.
Yeah.
And the form was called an International Circulation Attestation to Mainland France.
Can you repeat that once more?
Yes. International Circulation Attestation to Mainland France. So basically they're saying, you know, we want you to just verify and say, are you lying about COVID? Do you definitely not have COVID? Make sure you tell the truth because you're signing your name on this paper.
So basically they had their layover in France.
Yes.
Yeah, that is why they had to fill this form.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
So because their layover was in France, this was for their arrival in France.
And no transit visa was like required for this. So for the viewers watching from India and are planning to go to Canada, on Make My Trip, when you're booking the flight ticket, it also shows you on the bottom in which flight do you require the transit visa. So just make sure when you're booking the flight, you check that bar.
So each airline or each port of entry or transit will have, you know, more than likely their own form.
Okay.
Now, whether you get it when you check in or whether you get it when you land, I'm certain that both options will be available.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say I'm certain, but you know, I'm not 100% sure, is because once my parents filled this form, we'll get to it, but there is no mention of it after.
Okay.
So that's why the form that I'm gonna share with you still has, like, they filled it all in, they've signed it, but nobody took it.
Okay.
So they had it, but then there was no mention on the plane when they were getting off at Paris.
Oh, wait, they filled the form, they kept it like with them, and they still have it.
They still have it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I mean. So in times like this, I'm like, was India really the winner in this entire scenario? Because when we get to it, India is going to sound like the best place to fly out of, and then you're just like, okay, all these other places suck.
Okay. Jai Hind.
Yeah. So again, they just ask you, you know, name, information, things like a place of birth, are you in transit, are you stopping, your identity, nationality, passport number, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, again, to go with their tracking system, you know, in case somebody does or passengers have COVID. I would imagine that they've got, I hope they don't ever have to use it, and it'll be fun to see how they use it, but they're just creating their database of possible COVID exposure.
Patients. Yeah, people. Yeah. Got it.
Right. So that's the form that they received. They filled it in and they said that they wouldn't need it until they landed in Paris.
Okay.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So now they go through security. Again, they're on wheelchairs. Security lineup wasn't too bad because people were being staggered as they were coming in from outside.
Yeah.
So once you got to security, you know, there were only 2 or 3 people. Mm-hmm. India always makes you, I know Bangalore airport security always makes you take out all your electronics. I'm talking power banks, chargers.
Been through that. Yeah.
You know, so they still, and even during COVID right now, they're still making you take everything out.
Okay.
That hasn't changed.
Okay.
Again, they had, you know, labeled on the ground the 6 foot distancing to kind of mark for people.
Yeah.
But no one was standing there. People were just doing their thing, as they do.
Yeah.
Same thing with immigration. They got there, it wasn't very busy. They got to the counter, then that's where they handed in the second portion of the initial, the double form.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is
the first
stamped
form.
Version.
The first form. Okay.
The form that needed to be completed in India. So this was the stamped version of the form to say that they were clear.
Okay.
So handed that in, no other issues, no questions asked.
No temperature check.
No temperature check.
Okay. Okay.
The first, you know, checking it twice within the first 5 minutes, probably just like cleared them for good. So
Okay. Great.
and that's it. And then they were through immigration,
Mhm.
and they get into the Bangalore lounge or waiting area, right?
Yeah.
It is so quiet in there,
Yeah.
and there's no one, but everyone who's around is wearing their mask. But remember how Dad was like, "हाँ चलेंगे, जल्दी हो जाएगा, whatever, you know, खाएंगे, पिएंगे, ऐश करेंगे, बैठेंगे."
Yeah.
Yeah, turns out nothing, almost nothing was open except for duty free was open, and there wasn't a soul in duty free, just the people that worked there.
Mhm.
And I did ask my dad because I usually in Bangalore airport they have about 70 workers
Okay.
at duty free all the time.
Okay.
Like I don't know who they're helping. I don't know why they need that many people,
Yeah.
but they need them.
Yeah.
And he said this time there were, there was just, it looked like there was like 5 or 6 people.
5, 6 people.
So
Okay.
obviously they've cut down on their staff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody was wearing a mask, and they were lucky enough to find one kind of food
Food joint.
food
Joint.
counter, coffee, chai,
Yeah. Thela.
little.
If anyone is traveling to India to Canada and they're taking the late night flight, they should carry their own food.
Bring your own food.
Yeah.
Bring your own food, because things at the airport might not be open. My dad wishes he brought his own daru because even the one place that was open, they were only serving wine.
Yeah. Okay.
And usually at night before food, Dad likes to have 1 or 2 pegs, Punjabis, peg shake. But he didn't buy anything at the duty free. Of course, you can't open it at the airport.
Yeah.
They were only serving wine, and they were not serving hard liquor due to COVID because
Yeah.
Dad asked, and they
Mhm.
said we are not serving any hard liquor due to COVID.
So in Bangalore also, many of the restaurants are open. They're only serving food and no hard liquor is being served. I don't know why. All the liquor shops and everything is open. You can go in and buy your booze and everything. But inside the restaurant, like inside the pubs and bars, no alcohol is being served. I don't get the point. But yeah.
I don't understand. So they brought some food from home, of course. So they were fine, and they just waited. All the airport lounges were closed.
Oh. Okay.
All right. So all the airport lounges were closed, so they were not able to, go into like a nicer lounge
Nice
or use
lounge.
their lounge passes that they
Yeah.
have with certain credit cards give you passes
Yeah.
and stuff, right? They travel so much that they've just accumulated the points.
Yeah.
Can't wait till I'm 70. Like, it just sounds so fancy. The only other thing that happened was their gate got changed in Bangalore
Mhm.
airport.
Mhm.
They only found out because Dad went for a little walk, just kind of seeing what's happening, and he looked up at the screen and it said new gate.
Okay.
There were 3 flights leaving that night from
Okay.
Bangalore Airport.
Mhm.
So there was an Air France flight, a KLM flight, and an Emirates flight, I believe.
Okay. Okay.
And with all these people, we're still talking like, in the 300s, maybe a few more now that they were in the airport. But and lucky for them, like they were so lucky on this trip, right? But they got upgraded to business class.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And
The-
I've been upgraded
sitting
to
like
business
this.
class once
Yeah.
from like Toronto to America on like a 1-hour flight.
Oh
And it
no.
was the best 1 hour of my life.
Yeah.
And then their next flight was upgraded as well at
Okay.
the counter. She
Alright.
just did both.
Wow.
So the girl was maybe in a really good mood or whatever it was, like, thank you. They were one of the first ones to get on. And I told, I asked if you turned around to see, when you get on a plane and then you first stand in line to scan your boarding pass,
Mhm.
then you get onto the tarmac or you get onto the little walkway and you're
Yeah.
like, and you wait there for 20 minutes
Yeah.
it's a lineup and people are getting on. But he said it didn't seem that way. It was moving. There weren't a lot of people. So
Mhm.
it was good. They weren't specifically spacing it out or anything.
Okay. So
Alright,
they were
but,
not mentioning it. If you want to do it, you can do it, but they were not mentioning it.
They were not mentioning anything.
Oh, yeah.
The only announcement that they did make is make sure you're wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Right? So before pre-boarding announcement, they were like, make sure everybody's wearing a mask, and they did the boarding regular as per zones as they would on an aircraft, right?
Mhm.
Starting in the back
Mhm.
and moving forward.
Yeah.
So that was all the same. They announced maybe over the entire duration of the flight 3 times. So once in the beginning when they did their, welcome aboard message, once in the middle, and then once just before landing, so about 30 minutes before landing. They announced, just please make sure that everyone, even during that you were wearing your mask for the duration of the flight, right? So
For-
they wanted to make sure that people are
For 10 hours.
keeping their mask on. But if someone was asleep or something like that, they weren't waking you up to say, please put your mask on.
Okay.
But they would if they walked down the aisles like they would, and the seatbelt light was on, for example,
Mhm.
they'll say, please fasten your seatbelt. Same way, they were like, hey, please put your mask on.
Put your-
All right, and then bathrooms. This is one thing that I found really strange,
Mhm.
but bathrooms weren't getting any extra checks. I mean, we told our parents, when you open the door from the inside, use a tissue,
Yeah,
or a
yeah.
paper towel,
Mhm.
then use your foot, and then throw the paper towel out, and then make sure you don't touch the door. It's like a little dance.
Yeah. COVID dance.
A little COVID dance, just like,
Yeah.
door's about to close. The bathroom door closes so
Yeah,
fast.
yeah,
It's like small.
Yeah.
So I'm like, figure out a way that you don't touch it.
Yeah.
Or have like a chutney around you so that when you get to your seat, just put the chutney away. It's
Yeah.
not
Touching
it.
it. Yeah.
It's your bathroom chutney.
Yeah.
But inside there were there's no sanitizer or anything additional.
Okay.
It was just as regular.
Mhm.
So you had your soap, you had your water, you had your toilet,
Mhm.
paper towel, tissue. That's it.
Okay.
In business class, they did not have any toilet seat covers.
Okay.
And premium and economy, because they went and checked the bathrooms out, they had toilet seat covers. So
Okay.
that's one thing my mom noticed.
Okay.
Last but not least for this flight was the food.
Yeah. Very important.
So they brought their own food because we told them, and of course they were planning on traveling in economy.
Mhm.
So the last thing was food. And they spoke to, I guess, the head flight attendant in the business class department. He came over and introduced himself, said he's in charge of the food. This is our menu. What would you like? Please note that everything is prepared with caution and COVID in mind.
Mhm.
So, he mentioned that when talking about food.
Mhm.
They said they're just going to be serving something light for dinner, and then they'll have a proper breakfast, etc.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you've ever peeked into business class. I have, and maybe been on one by accident.
I know.
Or we just accidentally walked up there, like, oh, I'm lost.
Ma'am, please go back to the seat.
Right? It's like, sorry. And you're like, oh, what's happening? What do they have? And I noticed that they get the same size trays, but the food's not in a box.
Okay.
It's not in a plastic container. It's not in
Yeah.
a wrapper.
It's served basically. It's served generously.
Fantastic,
Yeah.
fancy,
Yeah.
on a plate,
Yeah.
steaming hot.
Yeah.
Looks like, Rita's Kitchen made it.
Oh, subtle plug. Yeah. Subtle plug. Was hard liquor served on the plane?
Yes.
Okay, it was. Okay.
All liquor was served on the plane.
Okay, great. That's a good thing.
Yep. Yeah, you need that after going through hours at the airport.
And 2 temperature checks.
Yeah, within 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Business class, there were 5 people, including my parents.
Okay.
It's about, I think, 25 to 30.
Yeah.
So 5 people,
Mhm.
and it's spaced out anyway. So
Yeah.
then you go to premium economy
Mhm.
or premier economy, premium.
Premium. Yeah.
Extra leg room area that you pay, so much more money for.
Yeah.
Premium economy had 2 people.
Only 2 people.
2 people.
So basically, including business and premium, we have 7 people right now.
Yep.
And
Yep.
what about economy?
And then economy, which usually seats approximately 300 people,
Yeah.
75 people.
Oh.
So well and spaced.
Well and
Everybody
spaced.
again had they land in Paris, they're on a wheelchair, they have to wait till the wheelchair assistance people come and get them. So they were the last to get off.
Mhm.
And they weren't segregating or spacing out anyone from getting off the plane. They got off the plane just fine, nothing was checked, nothing was said to them. People were being reminded as they got off because they could hear the flight attendant say, "Oh, please put on your mask," or "Please, please cover your nose," because people were wearing their masks lower. I
Like
guess.
that.
Like hey, I'm cool, man.
Chill,
This is
yeah.
your stuff. But yeah, so they got off the plane, no problem.
Mhm.
And then when they got off, it was like they had just stepped into a whole new realm,
Okay.
according to them.
Okay.
Because going from Bangalore International Airport to Paris, Charles de Gaulle International Airport,
Yeah.
they were like, did I just step back in time pre-COVID? Because the airport was just buzzing.
Whoa. People
It
all
was-
around, no rules, nothing.
Everyone's wouldn't say there are no rules,
Yeah.
but there were people all around, you know.
Okay.
Not everyone was wearing masks.
Whoa.
Some people were wearing masks, some people weren't wearing masks. There were people walking around without masks.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Paris was not my favorite city to begin with, and now I'm like, oh God, I don't like it at all.
Yeah. I'm not going.
Yeah. But they weren't wearing masks. Everything was open, right? So things were open. They got there early in the morning. Bars, restaurants, as they walked by, like everything was open and looked to be working as normal. All the staff were wearing masks.
Okay.
So that's comforting. But also there were passengers sitting at tables that weren't wearing masks, you know,
Okay.
or people walking around.
Not wearing mask. Yeah.
So they quickly were wheeled into the lounge. The lounges were open. So
Okay.
they got to the Air France lounge.
Yeah.
Got in, chilled out, relaxed. They had sanitizer. All right, so that is the lounge. Lounge was fine. They were serving alcohol. When they got there early in the morning, it wasn't too busy.
Mhm.
When they were about to leave and board their second flight, the lounge got a bit busier. They came in, and again, the staff was telling people to wear masks. Because people
Right.
would walk in and be like, they would take it off.
Yeah.
As soon as they walked in, and you know, my dad's going, you haven't walked into like a safe zone,
Yeah.
you know, just in a lounge. It doesn't
Yeah.
make your COVID disappear
Yeah.
just because you can afford a lounge pass.
Yeah.
Put your mask on. All right, so flight 2, they get wheeled out to the counter.
Mhm.
People, so they were waiting in line. Again, you know, they were gonna be even if they were in business class, they would be part of the pre-boarding because of the wheelchair,
Okay.
right? So you know how they do, like anyone traveling with children, anyone in wheelchair, elderly,
Mhm.
is always pre-boarding. So they were business, they were upgraded, luckily. So
Yeah.
they got to pre-board. This one was all just one entrance for business and economy.
Okay.
So same entrance. And here, when they got you to, they did, you know, this is how people, like, I don't understand if people think the plane is going to take off without them. And they go stand in line, or somebody's going to give their ticket, like their seat, to someone else if they don't make it in on time. They were doing random temperature checks in
Okay.
line at Charles de Gaulle Airport.
Okay.
Paris Airport.
Okay. Random,
So
just like you two go, you three come over.
This is how my dad explained it, right? And they've got their boarding pass and their document, right? Somebody comes over, they go, scan, all right. They're kind of pre-scanning to make sure, you know, you're good, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And then someone goes, can I take a temperature check? Boop. Done. Scan a few people. They're talking to each other. They kept talking. There was 2 of them. They kept turning around and speaking in French. And then all of a sudden they go, can I take your temperature? Boop. It was so random. It wasn't even like random selection by like an app or something. So he found another form in Paris. And I guess this is the same thing of collecting passenger information in case of a COVID breakout at the airport, right?
Yeah.
It's supposed to work the same way as the app does, that says, you have been within 15 meters of someone with COVID.
Yeah.
And so this is their tracking thing. He got one of those, and they kept it. They didn't have to fill in any forms. They weren't asked for the second form that
Yeah.
they filled out from Bangalore Airport, was not asked for.
Okay.
They didn't give it to anybody.
Mhm.
And now they have a third form, which is blank. And they're just like, oh, we'll just collect them.
चलता
My
है
mom's like,
चलता
did you
है
get me one? Yeah. She's like, can I have my own? Just in case. Okay. So my dad's like, I brought one more extra just in case. You know, sometimes you make a mistake.
ये रख लो तुम रखो पर्स में डालो
First with Allo.
Yeah.
Literally what happened. So that was it. So they got on the plane as regular, sat down, business class. This flight was definitely a bit more full.
Mhm.
So there were 8 people in business class approximately.
Okay.
And there were 6 people in premium,
Okay.
premium economy.
Okay.
And economy was almost full.
Okay.
There were only a few empty seats.
Okay.
Right? So they were definitely over like 150
So
people.
basically, I'm guessing that as it's a layover and people across the world come and then they fly off to, you know, like Canada. So
Yeah.
maybe that's the reason.
Paris is a very popular
Layover
destination
for
flights.
connecting flights, yeah.
For connecting flights from everywhere. So
If you are watching from Delhi, I don't know if you will get this reference or not. It's the Rajiv Chowk of the world. Just a pun, just a joke for my Delhi folks. I'm sorry. You can go ahead.
There were definitely over 100 people in the second flight, and maybe an empty chair here or there, and it was usually in the middle. So,
Yeah.
She did like a little walk around. She said if there were two people sitting in a row and there was an empty spot, they kind of separated, or that's what their ticket was.
So it's
But other than that-
generally like that's a very good thing that they were upgraded to like business class, because they were not, they avoided the rush back there. So
Yeah.
that's a good thing for them.
The one thing that I kind of thought about was there were only, what did I say? There were 6 people in premium economy. Okay.
Oh yeah, they
If you're
could.
premium economy, same size plane as the first one. You've got 30 seats.
Mhm.
You've got a full plane. Who cares? Move them up. This
Yeah.
is COVID. You're trying to take precautions. As an airline, you want people to fly with you. You want to now somehow get a better marketing strategy because you want people to fly with you
Yeah.
as the safer option, right?
Yeah.
So when I come off a plane and I go, this was great. I was in economy. And what they did was they took some of the older folk.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They took some of the older people and they put them in segregated spots.
It's
they could have a
basically
little bit
it's
more space.
basically a good word of mouth. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Hey, are your parents flying? Get them to fly with Air France. Hi, I just sold Air France.
Yeah.
Basic things like this boggle my mind. Okay, like where is the logic in times of need?
Yeah.
Use your brain. What if the world comes to an end? Are we just gonna start keep thinking in this little narrow box that we live
Yeah. Yeah. उसने $200 कम दिए, मैं उसको नहीं आगे बैठा रहा, उसे रखो पीछे.
in? Bread roll, extra bread roll थोड़ी मांग रही हूँ मैं. ये थोड़ी कह रही हूँ कि मुझे upgrade करके free champagne दो. Like
Yeah.
just give me I'm 80 years old. You can see that.
Yeah.
Even with my mask, you can see my wrinkles
Yeah.
and my cane. And you can probably smell me, all right? Because I've just come off another flight. Put me separately
Yeah.
so I can be safer. And you're now showing me that you care. Anyway, the food and everything was the same. On this flight, they were making a lot more announcements. So the first flight was only about 3 announcements, beginning, middle, and end, about wearing your mask.
Mm-hmm.
This one, they were doing more frequent reminders.
Okay.
So almost double or triple the time
Got it.
through the flight. When disembarking this aircraft, so when people were getting off this plane, they made an announcement to just say, we just want to do 50 people at a time.
Okay.
So it makes sense on this flight. In the first one, I guess they were barely, just over 50.
Yeah.
But on this flight, it makes sense because there were more people.
More
so
people,
they were
yeah.
doing 50 at a time.
Mhm.
And they weren't closely monitoring it, but the flight attendant or the main head flight attendant standing at the door going, okay, looking down, like once it was full, they're like, okay, please stop, and just stopping people on the plane.
Hmm.
They stop people from going outside into an open air area,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're like, hey, everyone go out to the open air, but hey, stop on the plane. Now everyone's backed up because people are already standing.
Yeah.
You don't know what number they are. They don't know if they're going to stop. People are already standing now in the little tiny aisles, right beside each other, really close, in an aircraft that has been recycling air for the past 8 hours. So let's just stop you on the plane as opposed to let you get out there and have access to possibly more fresh air.
Rita Airlines.
That's it. I'm starting an airline. Tickets are going to be $4,000, but you'll get everything.
Yeah. And tickets are going to be free for those who have subscribed to Reader's Kitchen What's Cooking.
Yeah, and the Bawa channel. Both of them.
Please, go ahead.
In France
Mhm.
and in Toronto,
Mhm.
the wheelchair workers were not wearing a hazmat suit. They were just wearing a regular mask and gloves. No hazmat, no screen.
You know what to
nothing.
say.
So, Jai Hind.
Good.
Before they got off the plane, everybody was told to fill in a form.
Okay.
So this is your arrival form. So in Canada, previously, we used to have our customs declaration form.
Mhm.
Over the past few years, they've made everything electronic. So when you get off and get to customs, you just go to a computer,
Mhm.
fill in the information, it prints off a card, and then you hand it in, and then you go through.
Yeah.
Now, they're asking you to fill in a form
Mhm.
before landing. It is not a customs declaration form. It's more of a COVID declaration.
Okay.
So my parents went ahead, and because we did some research before they traveled,
Mhm.
they got this app, and it's called Arrive Can.
Arrive can. Okay.
Arrive Can. So it's literally an app for people arriving into Canada.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
And all it is an online form. But it's all done online. They can see that you filled and submitted it when you get to immigration.
Mhm.
You don't need to manually fill out a form.
Okay.
So this is now their 3rd/4th kind of form they're coming across. But turns out it's only going to be the second one that they use.
Yeah.
So Arrive Can asks you all the information of Canada. It does ask you where you're quarantining in the form.
Okay. So for those who are who do not know by any chance, there is a 14-day of home quarantine or institutional quarantine if you do not have a place to stay. If you have a place to stay, you have a resident, you have a friend who has a separate room and a washroom, then you can home quarantine at their place. Or if you do not have, then you have to do a institutional quarantine, which is same, which is in India. You have to do institutional quarantine at a hotel or some place, some resort. You have to book, and you have to show in that app.
No extra questions. They did ask any symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
They looked at the form and they said, hey, do you have a place to where you're quarantining?
Yeah.
In our home.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone else living there?
Okay, this is the question. Okay, very important one.
Is there anyone else living there?
Yeah.
They said no.
Okay.
Now, had they said yes, we don't know what the next requirements would be.
Okay.
Because you do have to quarantine by yourself.
Yeah.
Or whoever you're traveling with, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that, I would definitely make sure that I keep in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, just having a separate room is not enough. And it says that, on a few of just the blog posts that I've read for people traveling to Canada recently,
Mm-hmm.
Having a separate room is not enough. And if you don't have a place to quarantine, the government will provide you with one.
Yeah.
The quarantine, if you don't have a place to stay and the government provides you with a place to stay, but there is a small fee associated with it. They were given forms on the plane, right? So for the Arrive Can forms, or whatever they were called, they didn't need to fill those out because they had the app.
Mm-hmm.
Get the app if you're traveling to Canada. It is so much easier and faster because what happened for all those sad souls that did fill out the form on the plane, when they got off, there was an announcement to say, hey, these forms are not valid because we actually have new forms, which, I don't know, they made up in the last 10 hours. So these forms are now the forms you need to fill out. Yeah. So please dispose of the other ones and fill this one out.
All right, so basically, app makes sense. So get app, okay.
Get the app, and it's still valid, and it's good to go. And it is on the Government of Canada website. This is the Government of Canada website where you can check out more details and information about traveling during COVID.
Yeah.
And it answers a lot of questions, and they have a contact number as well. So before traveling, any questions you have, you can check this out.
Oh, yeah.
And that's it. So they were given a little yellow form upon arrival, and the form just said, hey, give this to the next person. So the next person is the person you pass through to be like, oh, you're good to go, green channel. You're not good to go, red channel. So if you're green, you get to go ahead and get your baggage.
Okay.
Once they'd gotten to immigration, it was pretty empty. It emptied out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Toronto Airport is a very, very, very busy airport.
Mm-hmm.
So considering they said Toronto Airport was empty.
Okay.
It was very empty compared to Paris.
Okay.
Not too many people in there. And they arrived at 4:30 p.m. So 5 o'clock, I mean, you're
peak
looking
time,
at, this is...
Peak time.
Yeah, big time. But they said, no, it was pretty empty.
Yeah.
They got to their baggage claim. They got their bags really fast, faster than usual.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there were 3 other people waiting for bags.
Okay.
So there weren't too many people around the carousels either.
Yeah.
That's it. They handed in the little yellow get out of airport pass to the last customs officer, and they exited the airport. The wheelchair guys took them directly to the taxi stand.
Okay.
And they took a very expensive taxi 7 minutes down the road because that's how close we live to the airport.
Okay.
Very expensive taxi. And that's it. They're home. The first thing they did, I made sure, I was like, did you get home and wash your hands?
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
So hands washed, they're doing well, and they're feeling great. It's been a couple days, and all is well. Travel worked out.
On Make My Trip, when you are booking the flights, it will also show who can travel right now. And here it is, if you have missed that. First of all, permanent residents of Canada, Canadian passport holders, which was, I believe, your parents, individuals with work permits, and students can now travel to Canada. How are they making sure that the parents are home quarantined and not going out? They are not. They are not.
Nope.
Same in
My
India.
mom thought maybe she would be stamped, and then
Yeah.
you go somewhere and they have like an ultraviolet light, and I'm like, what movie do you live in?
They like did not like got stamp also. In
Nothing.
India they are like having the stamp and then nothing is there's left. But when you're going at malls or restaurants and any other place, they are checking for your hands, and it's
And what if
ink.
you're wearing gloves?
They are removing it. Yeah.
Oh, they're actually checking.
I faced it. In
Okay.
one of my videos, I do not know the video. Maybe the Bangalore cycling one video, I've showed that they have made me remove my gloves. So, and that ink does not go away for like 14 days. It's that vote ink that we use.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, they're not making sure they are home quarantine. Okay, so guys, this was it. A very good information provided by Rita's Kitchen. What's cooking? Please make sure like there is there was no reason for her to get involved in this video and help me out. She did to help you guys out, the viewers, so that if she has experienced something, her parents have experienced something, you get the benefit, right? That is what I do. That what she do. She makes great, amazing cooking, health, everything, like recipes and everything. Please go out and check her page. Please subscribe to her. You won't regret. Trust me. I've learned bhindi. I've learned curry. I've learned dal, like whatnot. Okay, please go and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Yeah, you can click on this video and watch it out, and click on this button to subscribe to my channel. Bye.